Hey everyone, Tyler Grant here with Dynamic Training Strategies. I got Ian Strambick here, all the way up from New Hampshire with Freedom Hill Gear, and today we're going to talk about edge weapons in the context of personal defense. Ian's the guy that kind of got me into edge weapons to really expand my mind on it with training, methodology, and just carrying. So we're going to start off with Ian. We don't normally talk a lot about background in the combat focused shooting program, but let's just go over what got you into the edge weapon stuff. What got you into personal defense training? Period.
All right, Tyler, thanks for having me. Let's see. I have a background in the military. Spent some time in the Marine Corps, about 4 years or so, and then got out and did some work in the executive protection field, and always kind of had a desire for the context of training and training other people to better themselves. And I've always, pretty much any little boy growing up has a fascination with knives, whether you want to admit it or not. And it just always kind of grew on me, and I sought out training originally through a good friend and mentor of mine in the blade or edge work community named Tom Sotis of Muck Combatives. And Tom is actually a local New Englander out of Rhode Island. And originally I started training with him, doing some blade work, and it all kind of bloomed from there, so to speak.
Awesome. So, and how long were you doing a mock? Correct.
Yes, correct. I did that for about a year and a half, 2 years or so.
All right. So I'm going to jump ahead in some of my questioning. So, is that a traditional knife martial arts, or is that a combination of the weaknesses of all and or weaknesses of none and greatness of all?
Yeah, it's more of a muck is more of an evolved and modified version, so to speak, of the traditional Filipino form of what's called Pikiti Tasira. Tom put his own spin on it, so to speak, and it all kind of evolved from there. And he made his own system, which is a muck, and it's not just about knives per se. It's a whole system that involves unarmed blade work, being able to actually use your handgun as a impact tool, using even other impact tools such as sticks, bats, or even what we call flexibles, such as in a improvised scenario, breaking off an antenna of a car and using that actually as a defensive tool as well.
So generally, it's anything that's a contact weapon is what I'm gathering.
Exactly.
Awesome. So I'm gonna go back to that line of questioning here a little later. So let's just go into why are edge weapons useful? Why are they an efficient an efficient tool for personal defense?
The reason that they're definitely an efficient tool is because regardless of the user's skill level, comparing that to, per se, a firearm, which definitely requires a high level of skill, so you don't injure yourself or others, anyone can realistically pick up anything with some type of point or an edge, and in a worst case scenario can actually use it to defend themselves with very limited skill. You take, as my good friend and another mentor of mine, Craig Douglas, which you'll hear me mention his name often throughout this, of ShivWorks, as he likes to say, you point the pointed edge or the pointed tip into somebody and you go to work on them. That's realistically all you really need to have in regards to skill.
Yeah. You trained with Craig a bunch. I trained with Craig one time, actually twice. I believe I did a little work with him a couple years back before I really met him. And I'm gonna take his EWO class here in July. He invited me to come out there, so I'm really excited about that. But so going back to the training model, what should people look at if they want to go train on their own, or and we'll break it up in two different things, two different sections. Training on their own, where they may not have someone around them, or it's something where we would kind of see, and it just doesn't make sense. It seems like a very inefficient use of time and resources versus going to somewhere and train. Either a school like Craig or your AMOC, or to say Kali, or another Filipino type martial art, not another, but Filipino knife fighting system. So let's kind of break that down of, if someone wants to go on their own, what resources are out there versus going to an academy or a weekend instructor.
All right. So if you want to talk about some type of training structure to look at, in my opinion, realistically, if we take the subject or the topic of the knife out of what we're talking about, what we really need to gain with skill first is, in my opinion, and what I've seen from experience, is having some type of grappling skill, or learning some type of grappling skill, some type of standing or grounded grappling skill before we actually even bring the edge tool or the knife into the mix. Because realistically, if we look at the plausibility of actually having to use an edge tool or a knife, it's going to be within 2 arms reach, because obviously it's a contact weapon. You're not going to be standing just outside 2 arms reach, or even farther than that. You're going to be within 2 arms reach to actually use the tool to its full effect. And if we look at any dash camera videos or closed circuit security camera videos, most stabbings that happen are within 2 arms reach, and they are in some form of grappling context. So in my opinion, what you want to do first is actually have some type of baseline, so to speak, of a grappling art, whether that be, and I'm going to be biased because obviously that I'm a big fan of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I do that about 3 times a week.
Yeah, and I kind of got you into that, right?
Yeah, you did. So I do that about 3 times a week. Obviously, there's other forms out there. You have American wrestling, freestyle, can catch can. You got sambo, actually judo as well. I mean, there's a number of different art forms out there when it comes to grappling. But at the end of the day, you need to have some type of baseline, in my opinion, of some type of grappling art.
So let's use you as an example who did kind of the opposite of that. I'm sure you did a little grappling work in a muck, but when we went out to SHOT Show before it started out, we went to was it Couture's gym?
Yep.
And we went. Yeah, we were actually able to roll around a little bit. I showed you stuff. I think we did a couple of YouTube videos up there. What opened your eyes with that to really say that's the first thing you need to do with some type of grappling work, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, whatever verbiage you want to use within 1 arm reach skill?
Realistically, it was the ability of another person to completely dominate the situation you're in, regardless of size, weight class, or even overall strength, with the right technique, which if we look at it, again, biased, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, if we look at it, where Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu originated from was for the smaller person to gain leverage in a less than desirable situation. So being able to gain dominance in a situation where you're the smaller guy, I mean, it definitely works. And seeing it, again, it was even, I think, but before you and I were at SHOT, what really opened my eyes is when I took Craig's class, his flagship course, ECQC, Extreme Close Quarters Concepts. It's 2.5 days of fighting within 2 arms reach, using a Glock T gun, sim gun, and pretty much going at it with 2 or 3 different guys. Me having a background in the military, having a muck. I wouldn't say I had an ego, but I definitely thought I'd do better than I did. And when you're on the ground grappling with somebody and, having your own knife trainer being disarmed of you and feeling that cold, dull steel being jabbed into your ribs is a real eye-opening and humbling situation to be in. And, for me, I literally had to take a few minutes on the side after the evolution was over to kind of compose myself and realize what happened. So then, right then and there was kind of a eye-opening experience for me, and definitely kind of made me think of how I can change this for the better, because that's a realistic situation that somebody can get into.
Yeah. And I know for me, and it's kind of going off of edge weapons, more going off of what you're saying, what we should do before we really start training edge weapons more for progression. I did some level of Army combatives when I was in the Guard, and I thought I was kind of a bit of a badass. Okay. When I started going to my MMA gym, Force of Martial Arts out of Russellville, Arkansas, I told Brian, the instructor, the owner, like, hey, man, like I got a little bit of background on this. I shouldn't be too bad. And I've just realized of whoever was there, whatever they wanted to do, they were able to do it. No matter how hard I strained, no matter how hard I fought, just a matter of time. And normally with the 3-minute rolling section, probably within 30 seconds, they did what they wanted to do. So I'm glad you recommend that in that way, because to me, it's a no-brainer. I didn't even think about it, but I really didn't think I should articulate that, because I think that should be a basis that everyone should do right away. So that's an awesome point. So now let's talk about, so they're doing some type of grappling system, okay, whatever system it is. What should they look at if they? I know we know Alessandro Padovani. We help with his Multi Attacker DVD. What kind of DVD systems or online training bases you can use, or weekend schools that you recommend?
Definitely in regards to seeking out training on your own in regards to using edge tools in a self-defense context, definitely recommend, definitely Craig Douglas of ShivWorks, just because I've had personal one-on-one time with him in multiple classes, and I can vouch for his quality of training and what works and what doesn't work. Cecil Birch of Immediate Action Jiu-Jitsu. He's out of Arizona, I'm pretty sure.
I got to train with him a couple years back. We were doing the drunken monkey boxing or something like that. My first anything with throwing of the fist, and man, whatever people want to do, they were able to do it.
Exactly. Paul Sharp of Sharp Defense. He has his course is called MDoc, and it's a zone program of within 2 arms reach, getting an edge tool out. And Alessandro Padovani of Safer Faster Defense. Obviously, you and I have worked with him in the past. And of course, my good friend Tom Sotis of Amok Combatives. Definitely recommend searching those people out. A lot of those guys actually have trainers under them that are just as good as they are themselves. So depending on where you live in your area and what you can get out to, I definitely recommend of those group of people to definitely check out.
Awesome. So cool. So let's talk about what, in your opinion, makes a good carry knife. I know there are fixed blades, there are folders, there are some that are you grip in a certain fashion that are meant to be carried a certain way. Let's talk about generally what's the concepts of what makes a good everyday carry knife.
Okay. So realistically, when I started first, carrying a blade, not just, for chores, like, opening boxes and stuff like that, but actually carry it for a self-defense blade, I only carried a folder, just because I never really thought of a fixed blade in the context of a civilian carrying it for self-defense. You think of a fixed blade, you think of, like a bayonet, something, you and I carried when we were in the military, something obnoxiously huge that's just not
because the bigger the knife that you had, the more badass you were, and the less room it took in them.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
And then over time, after pressure testing the skills, which is a good buzzword that I like to use, which is again, I'll say it, pressure testing your skills is really going to show you what work and what doesn't work, especially when we're talking about getting an edge tool out and getting it into somebody if the situation calls for it. So after pressure testing enough, I realized that about 60%, 70% of the time when you're entangled with somebody and you're trying to get a folder out, even if it's a one of the folders with the wave opening, which you've probably seen these. This is an example of one. This is a Spyderco Endura, and this has the wave opening on it. For those who don't know, the wave opening is meant to be caught on the pocket of your pants, and when you pull it out, it catches and deploys the blade. But if we think about if we're entangled with somebody, okay, there's a lot of pressure involved. Your limbs aren't going where you want them to be, and you don't fully get that good draw stroke of the knife out of the pocket. You're probably only going to get it open to about here, and now you're in this really horrible situation where this guy is probably beating you half to death, and you don't even have your blade fully opened yet, and there's really nothing you can do about it. And again, I've seen that happen not just on me myself in training, but also watching other students. It happened to them as well.
That's happened with me with just practicing the draw strokes and like dry firing with a knife. Either I'm going too slow. I've had it where I've gone with certain type of pants. I go too fast. It bounces back and it totally negates that whole locking system back there.
Yep. And then if let's say we think about, okay, we're not even dealing with a knife or a folder with a wave on it. We just have one with a typical thumb stud like this. This is a Benchmade. I think it's a Griptilian. I think it is, and this just has a traditional thumb stud. So not only do you have to get this out of your pocket, but now you have to brace it somewhere on you to have a good positioning to actually manipulate it with your thumb to fully open it. And again, this is a situation where we're entangled with somebody else. They could already, have a knife in you. You could have already been shot. You could have already, been clobbed in the head with a brick or something. So all these, fine motor skills of manipulating your thumbs and your fingers with these little thumb studs is probably not going to happen. So now you just literally just have an impact tool in your hand, and now you have to worry about getting the blade out. So then I started, looking around, researching myself, asking people, and I looked into getting what we call a small fixed blade, or an SFB, as it's sometimes called on forums or different pages, a small fixed blade.
So we're not talking about a traditional where I see it all the time down here in the South, where guys carrying basically deer skinning knives, buck knives, about yay long in a nice little leather holster. We're not talking about that.
No. The first blade that I actually started carrying, the small fixed blade, was the K-Bar TDI. You can pretty much find those anywhere, Amazon, wherever.
I think I own one or two of them.
Yep. So they look like this. This is the trainer version of it. The sheath that comes stock on is horrible.
Yep.
And that's another thing to take in consideration when you're looking at small fixed blades is the actual sheath that comes in. Just like how you wouldn't carry your firearm in a crap holster, I would never carry a defensive knife in a crap sheath. So that's something that needs to be thought about as well.
So it's basically it's like the same concept of an XD or some other gun that comes with a factory holster.
Exactly.
Those are generally crap, so you have to spend extra money into it. So regardless, whatever it is, you can add how much money does generally a sheath cost? Are they mass produced? Are they kind of custom made or what?
Yes. This one I had for the trainer. Just like with a handgun holster, we want to be able to, get that good firm grip on the knife before we get it out, just like you would with a handgun, so that when we get it out, we don't have to, do any extra manipulation with the hand to get it really choked up, so to speak, on the handle of the knife, just like you wouldn't do that with a handgun. Same concept. And thankfully, with this one, they really did a nice job cutting out in this area.
Who made that one?
This was actually a custom made one that I had a friend made off of a forum for me.
Okay.
But like I said, when you actually get that in there, you don't have to. When you get it out, there's no extra messing with the actual blade. And when it comes to thinking about blades, whether it be a small fixed blade or a folder, what I'm a big fan of is having a blade that has a nice deep, what we call a choil. Okay, a choil is just the technical term for when you grab hold of the knife, the part where your finger kind of goes into, so that it won't run forward of the blade. Because obviously, if you're doing work on somebody, so to speak, and you're really, thrusting this into somebody, okay, you don't want, in my opinion, having a blade like this. This is what I actually first started carrying. This is another Benchmade knife. As you can see, there's literally no choil on this. So if I'm actually thrusting this into somebody, my hand's going to go straight onto that blade, and that's obviously a horrible life decision on my part.
The funny thing that you mentioned, when I was still working out of a range, another company was there that made ballistic armor, and it was a level 2A, that was considerable vest that also repelled knife attacks. And I was using my Spyderco Delica versus an Erdira. This is a bigger one, right? So
yeah,
the Delica. Yeah. So one thing I did as I thrust into the Kevlar type material, my hand went there, and thank God I didn't cut myself. But I honestly didn't put two and two together until you just said that.
Yeah. It's not something really anybody thinks about, because you think, oh, well, I'm going to grab hold of the knife. But if we think about actually using this once again in a defensive context of having to put it through a jacket, multiple layers of clothing, if we hit a bone, a rib cage, okay, if we hit a chest plate on somebody, a chest bone on somebody, okay, your hand is going to run for this knife if there isn't something there to stop it in place, such as a nice deep choil on a knife. So that's something that I always look for when it comes to actually carrying a knife or using a knife in a defensive context, is having that nice good deep choil on it.
Right.
So now, did you want me to go into like the edge orientation as well?
Not yet.
Okay.
So you talk about what makes a good carry knife. In your opinion, does that TDI? Is that a good beginner knife for majority of people?
Absolutely. It's easy to procure. It's inexpensive.
What, like $30-$40?
Something like that. Yep. Yeah. And then, like I said, after you do purchase it, there's plenty of sheath manufacturer or holster. Believe it or not, actually a lot of custom handgun holster manufacturers actually do a lot of custom work when it comes to knives. So, there's, use the infamous Google, and I'm sure that you will come across a company that will do work and make a good sheath for you. A couple of people that I recommend off the top of my hand that I know do good work. I know that Spencer Keepers of Keepers Concealment, he makes a really nice one for the clinch pick. Dark Star Holsters, I know he makes really good holsters in general, but especially for knives as well. That's really all I can think of off the top of my head. But I know that, and Fulster out of Pennsylvania.
It works a lot with Jeff. So
Yeah,
yeah, I've heard of him.
yeah. Their sheath is actually what I carry daily on my clinch pick. So,
Yeah. All right. So now let's talk about two topics for the actual blade: forward versus reverse, and smooth versus serrated.
Okay. I'll get the easy one out of the way, which is the smooth versus serrated. When it comes to, actually doing, work on somebody, as I always like to say, if necessary.
Go into detail, talk about going to work, because I think that should be explained for a number of reasons, but explain why you're using that terminology.
Okay. Kind of using that terminology just to explain, if the situation deems necessary for you to defend yourself with a blade, that is what you're actually going to do to the person. Okay, you're going to go to work on them and make sure that, seeing that this was a life or death scenario that you're in, that you're going to make sure that they are no longer a threat to you. Okay, and you can kind of define that even more on your own if you want, but I'm pretty sure that we're all adults here and we can get the picture of things, of what I mean, of actually going to work on somebody with a defensive knife.
Because of this knife, this edge weapon, is a I think there's going off of what Craig Douglas talks about. There's enough case study talked about that knives are deadly weapons.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people get bent out of shape, with police or whoever. I know this is another topic. When someone's going after a police officer with a knife, they get mad that they shot and killed the guy. Well, if you look at the attacks, people who get shot with handguns generally survive. People who get attacked with knives, they kind of generally die because they're able to pump. They're able to attack the hydraulic system, the cardiovascular system, to get more of the hydraulic fluid, the blood, out of the system. And once you get enough of that fluid out of the system doesn't work anymore.
Absolutely. And depending on, who you learn under, who you learn the skills for in regards to, a defensive knife, it's literally a monkey with a screwdriver is what you should be doing to the person. Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Literally as Craig likes to call, a Singer sewing machine on somebody. Okay, that's what you should be using the knife for. Just like how with
little jabs, right? Just little jabs.
Lots of deep jabs, and just like how you would put multiple holes in a target with a handgun, you want to do the same thing with a blade.
So, well, a lot of people talk about, when they're trying to shoot through the same hole. Do you want to do the same thing with a blade?
No, you want to maximize as much damage as you can.
Okay, so that whole concept is just like silly then.
Yes, just because the knife isn't a projectile tool. Just with the handgun, you have the ability to cause cavitation in somebody because it's a projectile. With a knife,
cavitation is the actual opening of the human body there. Big words. So the funny thing is, you talk about a monkey with a screwdriver. When in my self-defense class, I briefly talk about edge weapons because it's I say a hot topic. It is a topic that needs to be discussed because there's so much information out there. And I try to stay in my lane because I'm not the world's expert on knife work, but I'll literally hand a trainer to a student, and I'll have someone else come up here and I'll go, all right, stab them. And they do what, there's no training, and they just hack slash and ice cream scoop and everything else, and the other person is just at awe. And I'm trying to make a point of going, how much training have you had with a knife? And I don't even ask. I said none. Okay. So yes, you should get training with it, but that's how little training it takes, And even to some people, like, well, I don't know what to do with it. Can you cut a steak? Can you cut a vegetable? Can you cut something up? Yeah, do that. just do that, but more violently?
Well, I mean, that's what, going back to what you originally asked me in regards to why is a knife such a vital tool, is because, you know, pretty much everybody at some point in their life has picked up a knife. Not everybody can say that when it comes to a firearm, okay? At some point in your life, you've picked up some type of tool in your hand that has a pointy end on it, and more than likely has some type of edge on it, okay? And like you just said, it doesn't take any high amount of skill to put that in someone's hand, threaten them with violence, and see what happens. And again, monkey with a screwdriver, that's what typically you'll see. And not just with people with low skill level, you will see that in a pressure tested environment, because that is what works, especially when we're talking about within 2 arms reach, entangled, grappling with another live human being.
Awesome. So we got off on a rabbit hole. Smooth versus serrated.
Okay. So, if we're using it in a self-defense context, then smooth any day of the week. The only knives that I have that are serrated are my, general chore work knives that, open boxes, cutting rope.
But Ian, I've been told that if a smooth blade, if it hits a seam on jeans, that it will bounce off and won't cut through it.
I've actually never heard that in my life. That's actually a first for me. So
I mean, I don't necessarily believe it, but I think with enough force and you use the tool as such, and people get mad at me when I carry this and say, "Hey," and they see your knife, I go, "No." Like, what do you mean? Like, these are for people. And they look at me like I'm crazy. True.
And that can be like a double-edged sword, no pun intended. If you take, that knife, for instance, that you have in your hand, the Pakal, and, if you were to take that out, in a general workplace environment, people are probably going to look at you like you're a weirdo because it doesn't look like an average knife. Mm-hmm. Now, for instance, you carry, this Griptilian, or that, for instance, as your defensive knife. You could take that out and, open it to cut boxes or whatever, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You just have to take the extra time every now and then to resharpen the blade. Okay, so it's just something to think about. Okay, I carry the clinch pick every day. That's not a knife that I would take out of cut boxes just because it's so odd and obscure looking that people are going to question it. Okay,
so it's also be a really expensive box opener too, and letter opener.
True. So I've heard mixed reviews on that. Some people say, you should take it out to use the cut boxes just so that you're used to, having your hand more often. I'm in the opinion of that, there should be no difference, because you should practice with your defensive knife just as often as you would, use your everyday carry knife to open boxes. Okay. And that's where it comes back to quality training. And for the most part, and this is just my opinion, for every knife that you have, you should have a replica or as close to a replica of that knife as a drone trainer, which is basically just that knife dulled out and painted something obscure so you know that it's a trainer. The ones that you saw me, pull out earlier, it's obviously a bright red and it's dull. Okay, obviously you could still cause damage on somebody if you wanted to.
Yeah, they still hurt when someone still does a lot of little jabs.
Yes, and that's when it comes down to getting quality training, and the instructor will, teach or show you that, you can't go 100% on somebody with an actual steel trainer. That's why they make ones such as these, which are a foam trainer but a wooden core, so it's not going to flop on you. You can bend it, but I've been jabbed in the eye with these, like straight up jabs, in the body, in the eye, and I'm still living to tell the story. And these things don't break, but they're soft enough that they're not going to cause any aesthetic damage, so to speak. on you versus, a steel trainer.
Awesome. All right. So I'm sure there's a couple more questions that I have from this, but let's go with probably the biggest question with the edge weapons: reverse blade versus forward edge versus reverse edge. And I have a forward edge and reverse edge knife. They look similar, but go ahead and explain to me. This is a delicate from both Spyderco's, designed by Craig Douglas, but kind of go into the differences of them and training methodology and philosophy. I say training or use methodology and philosophy.
Okay. So when I originally got into blade work, I was always a forward edge guy. And what we mean by forward edge or reverse edge is where the edge orientation is towards your hand. So obviously forward edge, the edge is facing out from your hand. The most traditional grip that you'll see most people pick up a knife, whether it be a defensive knife or a kitchen knife or whatever, that is a forward edge grip.
Like this, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That is what we call a forward grip edge out.
Okay.
Okay. And I never really thought anything of it. Okay. I also practice with reverse grip edge out. Okay. Okay. Which would just be obviously the knife coming. Yes, exactly. So that would be reverse grip edge out. And I never really thought of ever having the blade or the edge face in towards me. And there we go. Exactly. So if we once again take a step back and not thinking about the edge orientation, just like how you asked me about training, and I said that grappling is paramount prior to putting the blade in someone's hand. If we think about the edge orientation secondary and the point as the primary tool, you can literally pick up any tool in your house, whether it be a pen, pencil, a CD edge case, anything that has a point on it, you can use that realistically to defend yourself or others. Okay, so if we think about that first, that is going to be the most vital before we think about edge orientation. Okay, but when it comes to edge orientation, okay, I'm a big believer and proponent of reverse edge. Okay, like I said, I originally started out with the edge out, and I now like the edge in, and that's how I primarily carry daily. And the reason for that is if we think about it in a context of grappling within two arms reach, entangled with another human being, you're not going to have the time or the ability, in my opinion, again, this is just my opinion, to have that range of motion or that arc to actually get that edge out into somebody.
And do you think we kind of see that from traditional martial arts with a blade?
Yes.
You think that's where that stems from?
Yes. Yes, you will see that in very traditional arts, such as Kali or Eskrima, or any of the other Indonesian or Filipino arts. You will see it primarily with the edge out, and that's.
And generally, is that from like knife to knife attack or fighting?
Yes.
Type of deal. And let me ask another question on top of that. Do we see that a lot?
No, in a first world country such as the United States, you're very rarely going to see what I call a knife duel. Okay, you're very rarely going to see a ranged situation, so just outside two arms reach, and then both of the individuals access their knives and go at it. Okay, that's it's very unrealistic. Is it possible? Sure, anything's possible. Okay, I live out here in the sticks, and it's very possible for three armed individuals with AKs to come bursting in my house in a town of 830 people. Sure, anything's possible, but realistically, if you look at, statistical data, it's not going to happen. If anything, you're going to be entangled with somebody. That person, because you're not going to be paying attention where their limbs are, they're going to access a tool, and next thing you know, you're going to be leaking red, watery stuff out of your body, okay, where it's not intended. Okay, that's realistic. then you have to deal with gaining control of their limbs and hopefully be able to access your tool. Okay, that's realistic. So,
okay, so keep going.
okay. So, realistically, and again, I'm gonna be biased and take my everyday carry, which is the clinch pick trainer. Okay, we think about using the tool inside of a clinch, where the edge, if you see the edge of my finger, the edge is facing this way, so towards my wrist is where the edge is going. Okay, so if we think about we're entangled with somebody, okay, we're wrapped up, and all we have for ability is to use our lat muscles in a rearward motion. Okay, this is a very strong muscle group, as you know. You know more about muscle groups than I do.
So you're talking about basically almost you're so close that you're hugging each other to an extent, correct?
Exactly. Okay, somehow you were able to get to your waistline, access your tool. Now it's out, and you have it in the person, and the only way to get it out and repump it back in is to use your lats. Okay, so with the edge facing towards your wrist, okay, you're literally just kind of just gutting the person, so to speak. Okay, you're literally just pulling the knife out and then going back in. And if the edge was forward, you wouldn't literally be able to do anything within such an encroached close distance. You wouldn't have the ability to reach back out, rechamber your arm, and go back in. Okay, if anything, you just have the ability to pull it back out and then go back in. So with the edge facing out, again, my opinion, I feel like it is a much deadlier edge orientation if we think about realistic self-defense knife application in today's world.
So with all your training experience, if you had, you're going to start teaching edge weapon stuff through Freedom Hill Gear,
yep.
Would you, and you have a brand new student, like we kind of talked about with mags forwards and mag backwards, and they were talking about what should I do edge forward to edge backwards, what would you tell them?
Well, first I would see what type of knife they're going to be carrying, because not all knives are going to be able to be carried in the reverse edge format. Okay, just like all reverse edge knives aren't able to be carried in the forward edge format, just because of the mold of the grip of the blade, or should I say, the grip of the body of the knife. Sometimes, depending on how it's made, you aren't able to carry comfortably or effectively with the edge in the reverse format. So I would see what type of blade they're carrying first, and then go from there. And again, just going back to the beginning, I'm not really worried about the edge. I'm more worried about them getting the blade out and getting the pointy end into the soft tissuey stuff. That's what I'm more worried about. From there, once we narrow that down, then we can kind of refine and see what works for them, what type of knife they're carrying, and then see what works and what doesn't work.
Gotcha. So let me kind of wrap this up and see if I have a good understanding. So the edge weapon training doesn't really start with an actual weapon. It starts with more of grappling, understanding more proprioception or body awareness with entangled with someone else.
Yes.
From there, you really don't care about the knife itself. You just care about that they're able to get it out of where they're holding it from and be able to insert it into the other person in an offensive situation.
Absolutely.
Only there you care about the method of where the blade is facing in the style of knife.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So we're talking. So what you're saying is, which sounds crazy, at the very end, what actually matters is the blade itself.
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense, Ian. If I can buy this, it makes me safer. That's how it's supposed to work.
I know, it's crazy. It's weird. Probably makes you feel uncomfortable, but that's how it works.
So awesome. So Is there anything else that we didn't cover that it just sits on your heart when you talk about edge weapon stuff? There's just that one thing that you hate to hear, and you always have to calm yourself to talking about edge weapons.
Uh, no, I think we really covered everything for the most part. I didn't really get into um, really placement because I really don't feel like that's really
That's an in-person
yeah
conversation.
it's one of those things that just like with the carry method of your handgun, it's all going to come down to personal preference and what works and what doesn't work for the.
I mean, personal preference to a certain extent. I truly believe if you don't have a gut and you're somewhat athletic, appendix carry is the way to go.
True.
And the funny thing is, I've seen big guys. Well, I can't carry appendix because of their stomach. I mean, I've heard either way. I can't carry here because of this. I can't carry it on my side because of this. Regardless, either way, you can carry it on you. You just need to quit being a baby about it.
Very, very true, without a doubt. So with that being said, probably one of the other biggest things is just getting out on the mat or whatever safe designated area you have and just pressure testing the skills over and over and over again. Okay, that is your experiment. Okay, that's where you find out what works and what doesn't work. Okay, that's where you find out, okay, this knife doesn't work because it slides out of my hand, or this carry method doesn't work because I can't get to it in time. Okay, that is where you are going to find where you stand, okay, so to speak. And I would say just get quality training and take everything, unfortunately, just like within the firearms world, take everything that you hear with a grain of salt, because anybody can go on YouTube just like we are now, okay, and make up a video of knife defense or knife disarms. Okay, anybody can do that. Okay.
All right. Since you talked about knife disarms, we can't not talk about it. Okay, or just talk about disarms in general. Okay. I'm going to talk about my 2 cents first because I actually do talk about this a lot in my self-defense class, my within 103 stuff. Disarms, you can do them, but the main way, generally how they're trained, is just getting reps in muscle memory, and that's setting people up in the wrong way, and people don't fight back when you do a disarm. They
just weak wrist it.
Yes, and it's set up in such an environment where I feel that it gives people false confidence. Also, we have seen things, I know we probably say to each other, of people, it's okay to grab the blade. As long as you grab the blade, grip it really tight, they can't move it, so you can't get cut. You know how many times I actually just accidentally touch a blade cutting up a carrot? I have made myself bleed. Like, literally that, and I'm bleeding everywhere. So
hurts my soul.
So I do believe in disarms, but if you're going to disarm someone, we have to control that thing. Generally with both hands, and if we can get to their side, and before I taught with Craig, one thing that stuck with me from doing jiu-jitsu and MMA is positions over submissions, position over strikes. Okay, so and what Craig talks about, that's same side control, correct?
Yes.
Same thing, articulated in different ways. So we want to angle ourselves where we can control that, get the other person off of balance, then try to take it away, instead of we think we know that deadly weapon is at whatever location because this is our 10th rep. Instead of, hey, I don't know where it's at, I need to recognize where it's at. Only where I recognize where that deadly tool is at is where I can do something about it.
Absolutely. The the biggest thing, just like you said, disarms are possible. Okay, with enough skill, enough time, with training, you can get to that high level. But if I only have 8 hours a weekend, 2.5 days at the very most, depending on what a student can dedicate their time, money-wise, time away from work, family, etc. If I only have that limited amount of time, I'm not going to delve into that just because it takes such high level of skill. Just like we said, I'm going to get some basic grappling skills understood with the student first. Then from there, we're going to work in entanglement, and then from there we're going to try to access that knife under pressure and then see where it goes, okay? Because that's realistically what's going to happen, okay? And the biggest thing is understanding where your opponent or the threat's limbs are in space, okay? Limb control is everything, okay? Not just with knives, with handguns, with anything when you're entangled with somebody, okay? If you don't know where these are,
Something bad is going to happen to you.
Something bad is absolutely going to happen to you, okay? Just like we carry, okay, our defensive tools on the waistline, so do the bad guys, okay? So the minute one limb is out of the picture, you don't know what's going to happen, okay? And it's definitely not going to be in your favor, okay? So that's why I'm a big proponent on, and again, I'm a big proponent on these things, and I'm a believer in it because I've pressure tested and I've tried it. And, Craig has opened my eyes to a lot of these things. Is 4 basics: underhook, overhook, bicep ties, wrist ties. Okay, those are what work. And I know that's probably nomenclature for viewers that are watching right now that aren't very familiar and they don't really understand. But like I said, you get to a quality trainer, they'll go over that with you, they'll explain it. But those are basically the 4 basics that, in my opinion, that are the most valuable when you're entangled with somebody in what we like to call a edge weapon environment. Okay.
Awesome. Well, Ian, we've been jibber-jabbering for close to an hour now. I don't have anything else. I don't have any more questions, and I'm pretty sure we've covered almost everything we wanted to cover, and I don't think we'll have too many I wish we said that, because surprisingly we covered a lot, and there's a lot of rabbit holes and tantrums. And hey guys, just to let you know that through technical difficulties, I could not get this to work. So I'm the moderator on Ian's channel. So here pretty soon, I'm gonna have a lot more online content, and I expect to have Ian back again at some point to talk about strength training, conditioning with with self-defense, and talk about his personal journey that he took that I helped him out on. And I'm sure a few more topics, and also I'm going to be getting instructors from across the U.S. That I'm personally friends with on my channel, The Training Evolution, just to give you a broader scope, and so you also get kind of my 2 cents too on things. Okay, Ian, you got anything else you want to add?
No, man, that's really about it. Thanks for having me, or
thanks for having me to have you.
You got it. And maybe next time you can get your shit to work on your end. So,
oh my God, you have no idea how much I want that to be true.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm Tyler Grant with Dynamic Training Strategies. That's Ian Strembeck with Freedom Hill Gear. Stay safe, keep training.